Picture this: Terry McDermott angrily pointing at Craig Bellamy in a narrow tunnel, shouting, "You disgust me," after what would become one of football's most explosive confrontations. But this wasn't just another heated moment between two players. This was the climax of a feud that had been brewing for over a year, and it would define both men's legacies forever. September 20th, 2006, Anfield Stadium. Liverpool had just beaten Newcastle 2-0, and the players were heading down the tunnel. Terry McDermott, the Liverpool legend turned Newcastle assistant manager, was speaking with the referee when Craig Bellamy suddenly appeared. What happened next was pure chaos. McDermott thought Bellamy was joking at first and put his arm around him. But then Bellamy started calling him names, escalating to the most vile language you can imagine. That's when McDermott lost it completely. He grabbed Bellamy and yanked him over a banister, causing what he later described as bedlam. Liverpool players, including Jamie Carragher, raced over to break it up. But here's the shocking truth. This wasn't really about these two men at all. This explosive moment was the result of something much deeper, something that started long before they ever met face to face. To understand this story, you need to know who Terry McDermott really was. This wasn't some hothead looking for trouble. McDermott was football royalty, a man who embodied everything good about the sport. During his time at Liverpool from 1974 to 1982, he won 5 First Division titles and 3 European Cups. He was the definition of a loyal club servant, someone who understood what it meant to put the team first. His relationship with Newcastle was just as special. Multiple playing and coaching spells showed his deep love for the institution. McDermott represented old-school values: respect, loyalty, and discipline. He was the kind of player every manager wanted and every fan admired. Craig Bellamy was the complete opposite. Talented? Absolutely. But he was also volatile, nomadic, and known for public disputes with authority. His own autobiography talks about his burning desire to succeed that often got him into trouble. While McDermott built his career on stability and loyalty, Bellamy's was defined by conflict and controversy. So how did these two completely different personalities end up in that tunnel, grabbing each other and causing chaos? The answer might surprise you because it shows just how professional and loyal McDermott really was. If you're finding this story as fascinating as I am, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which side you think was right in this feud. The truth behind how it all started will shock you. January 2005, Terry McDermott returned to Newcastle for his 4th stint with the club, this time as assistant manager under his former Liverpool teammate Graeme Souness. McDermott was excited to be back, but he walked into a nightmare situation that wasn't of his making. Souness was already at war with Craig Bellamy. The Newcastle manager had physically grabbed Bellamy and marched him out of a team meeting, accusing him of being disruptive and faking injuries to avoid games. The atmosphere at the club was toxic, and McDermott found himself right in the middle of it. But here's what makes McDermott's actions so admirable. He didn't create this conflict. He inherited it. As a loyal assistant manager, he supported his boss and the institution he served. Just days after joining Souness's staff, McDermott made a public statement that would set everything in motion. In a local newspaper column, McDermott declared he had no wish ever to meet Bellamy and was astonished by the level of hatred and unrest over one person at the club. These weren't the words of a man looking for trouble. They were the words of a professional frustrated by what he saw as destructive behaviour. What's remarkable is how McDermott's comments mirrored Souness's own thoughts, almost word for word. The phrase, "I've never come across so much hatred and unrest over one person," appeared in both men's statements. This shows McDermott wasn't acting out of personal spite. He was being a loyal soldier, defending his club and his manager against what he genuinely believed was harmful to the team. McDermott's public stance was an act of institutional loyalty, something that defined his entire career. He valued club hierarchy and discipline above personal relationships. His condemnation of Bellamy wasn't random or petty. It was calculated and professional, designed to support Newcastle United's position. Bellamy clearly got the message. He later admitted he was half expecting something from Newcastle, showing he understood the resentment building on Tyneside. McDermott had drawn a line in the sand. and Bellamy knew it. This initial exchange set up everything that followed. But what happened next shows both McDermott's strength of character and his ability to handle pressure in the most challenging circumstances. The tension simmered for over a year. Bellamy left Newcastle for Blackburn, then moved to Liverpool for £6 million in the summer of 2006. When the fixtures came out, everyone knew the first meeting between Liverpool and Newcastle would be explosive. That September night at Anfield was charged from the start. Bellamy was facing his former club for the first time, and the travelling Newcastle fans had been taunting him throughout the match. The atmosphere was electric, and everyone could sense something was building. After Liverpool's 2-0 victory, both teams headed down the narrow Anfield tunnel. This is where McDermott showed the kind of character that made him a legend. He was calmly speaking with the referee, doing his job professionally, when Bellamy appeared and started the confrontation. McDermott's first instinct was actually peaceful. He thought Bellamy might be joking and tried to defuse the situation by putting his arm around him. This shows the kind of man McDermott was. Even after all the bad blood, he was willing to be civil. But when Bellamy escalated with vile language, McDermott showed he wouldn't be disrespected. He defended himself and his dignity, grabbing Bellamy and yanking him over the banister. This wasn't random violence. This was a man who had been pushed too far, finally standing up for himself. The aftermath reveals even more about McDermott's character. While the clubs tried to downplay what happened, with a Liverpool spokesman claiming it was over in 2 seconds, and Newcastle's manager claiming to be unaware of any altercation, McDermott told the truth about what occurred. He didn't hide behind corporate spin or try to minimise his actions. In the media, he called Bellamy a little upstart who thought he was a big cheese at Newcastle. These comments show McDermott's honesty and his willingness to stand by his principles, even when it might have been easier to stay quiet. What's fascinating is that the Football Association never took any public disciplinary action, despite McDermott's detailed account of physical confrontation. This suggests the institutional downplaying was successful, but McDermott never changed his story or backed down from what he knew happened. The clubs wanted to control the narrative and avoid fines or scrutiny, but McDermott remained authentic throughout. He didn't let corporate interests silence his version of events, showing the same integrity that defined his playing career. But the most remarkable part of this story was still to come, and it would show McDermott's true character in ways that might surprise you. 5 months later, Liverpool returned to St James's Park for the reverse fixture. The bad blood was still there, the media was still talking about the tunnel incident, and everyone wondered if there would be more drama. McDermott was in the tunnel again, probably thinking about that night at Anfield, when Craig Bellamy approached him. McDermott's first thought was that Bellamy was going to punch him. After everything that had happened, who could blame him for being defensive? But then something beautiful happened that shows the kind of respect McDermott commanded, even from his enemies. Bellamy extended his hand for a handshake, wanting to end the ill feeling between them. This moment reveals everything about McDermott's character. He could have refused the handshake. He could have held onto the grudge. He had every right to stay angry, but instead he accepted the gesture like the professional he always was. McDermott later gave Bellamy a grudging compliment, acknowledging that while he was mouthy, he was also a good player. This shows McDermott's ability to separate personal feelings from professional respect, something that made him such a valuable coach and teammate throughout his career. The handshake wasn't a public spectacle or media opportunity. It was a quiet, private moment between two professionals who had reached an understanding. For McDermott, it showed his maturity and his ability to move forward without carrying unnecessary baggage. This resolution reinforces what made McDermott special throughout his career. He was guided by principles, not emotions. He stood up for what he believed in, defended his clubs with passion, but also knew when to let go and move on. The contrast with Bellamy's approach is striking. While Bellamy had a history of conflicts throughout his career, including feuds with Graham Souness, Alan Shearer, and the famous John Henry's Golf Club incident, McDermott's confrontations were rare and always principled. McDermott wasn't someone who looked for trouble or created drama for its own sake. His conflict with Bellamy was an exception, not the rule, which makes his handling of it even more impressive. If you've enjoyed learning about this incredible story of loyalty, conflict, and resolution, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating football stories you won't find anywhere else. The McDermott-Bellamy feud ultimately became a defining moment for both men, but it shows McDermott in the best possible light. Here was a football legend who inherited someone else's conflict, handled it with professionalism and integrity, stood his ground when challenged, and graciously accepted resolution when it was offered. McDermott's willingness to serve as a public representative of Newcastle's frustration with Bellamy shows his loyalty to the institution. His honest account of the tunnel incident shows his integrity. His acceptance of Bellamy's handshake shows his maturity and professionalism. This wasn't a random clash of personalities or a moment of madness. It was a principled man defending his club, his manager, and ultimately himself against what he saw as disruptive behaviour. The fact that it ended in mutual respect speaks volumes about McDermott's character. The story lives on, not in official reports or disciplinary records, but in the memories and anecdotes that continue to shape how people see both men. For McDermott, it's another chapter in a career defined by loyalty, professionalism, and doing the right thing even when it's difficult. In professional football, where ego and self-interest often rule, Terry McDermott represented something different, a man who put his clubs first, stood by his principles, and handled conflict with dignity. The Bellamy feud didn't ruin him. It showed exactly what kind of man he really was,